Hey everyone, let's wrap up August, or at least try to, because the constant state of overwork is affecting my memory. Preparing for the video, I wrote down all the books I read this month, and I forgot about quite a few of them. So let's start with videos, because I actually uploaded a discussion. We talked about the right time to DNF or the struggles I have with DNFing, and you shared your struggles with DNFing, or some of you are really good at it. I'm amazed. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. I also uploaded a vlog wherein I talked about quite a few of the books here, a little bit of rambling and some fireworks. Thank you all for your nice comments on my struggles with being in my 40s and just everything being awful. I'm exaggerating, but that's just the state I was in at that time. And I uploaded a letter to August, which also showed that I barely remember anything, but it had some nice footage. So thank you very much for enjoying that. And now on to the books. I read a book in German, Die Katzen von Shinjuku. I really liked the cover. I liked the author's other book, but I didn't enjoy this one. There is no English translation as far as I know. And it's mostly about this young man struggling with his career, feeling a little bit mistreated, then meeting a girl in a pub, and there's this game about the cats, and honestly I have no idea what the book wanted to tell me. It's a snippet of his past he's telling years later, looking back upon his beginning of his career and this unfulfilled or unrequited love story. It was a drag. The other physical book I read was A Room Called Earth, and I loved this. I really enjoyed the writing. It's basically following a young woman getting ready for a party, going to the party, coming home with someone after the party, and then the events occurring. We see everything through her point of view. It's stream of consciousness mostly, and we follow her thoughts, jumping from one thing to the next and experiencing life. That's all she does. She wants to be herself and experience life, and she really portrays or conveys it in the writing. There's a lot of dialogue as soon as she gets to the party and starts talking to people and to this person she takes home with, and I really, really enjoyed this. This was just recommendable. The last physical book I read was a manga, the Soulless manga #1. I wanted a quick read, I wanted to reread something, and this was just the easy pick. You know me, I love the Soulless series, I love the manga, and it was just the first one, and I managed to not read the rest this time, so I'm pretty proud of myself for that. Oh, in case you don't know, Soulless is steampunk about this preternatural woman, Alexia Tarabotti, who can cancel out supernatural powers in others, and there's quite some romance with a werewolf and other characters as long as the story progresses, but I really enjoyed the series. Now let's get to the messy digital parts that I read. And let's start with classics, because I listened to quite a few classics this month, starting with Dracula. Dracula was one I thought I read before, but I probably haven't or not finished, because the unabridged version I listened to was a full cast audiobook, which really brought the story to life. The book is written in letters and memorandums and diary entries, so each character had a different narrator, and that was really well done and helping you not get bored by the monotonous tone of narration sometimes. The events were those that we probably all know of. Dracula, there's the Count coming to London and trying to seduce and bite people. That's very badly summarized, but anyways, those parts I remembered and I really enjoyed. The ending, or the second part, or was it the third part? I don't remember, it was in parts. But there was a huge part at the end that's basically the characters chasing Dracula to try and kill him. And that part dragged out a bit, and I thought it was a bit boring, and I completely didn't remember. But anyways, the audiobook production I can highly recommend. Another full cast narration I listened to was Pygmalion. I have seen the film My Fair Lady, but never read the book, and I was interested in maybe listening to it as a play, because I think most of the part is a play. I'm not even sure about that. Anyways, the production was rather nice, and I enjoyed the first part. The second part was just narration, and I completely didn't get the point of that. Pygmalion is the story of this speech consultant, there's probably a better word for it, but someone who teaches you to speak properly and to researchers speak, who takes this flower girl from the street and teaches her to speak proper English and to be able to move around in a different class than her own. And that works quite well. There is fun, and like I said, the first part was fun, but the second part was what happened after the bet, that he can pass her off as a duchess or something. After that was done, there was, I would call it a long epilogue of what happened afterwards with the characters. And I didn't get the point. I don't know what it was there for. It was kind of rather boring and longish. For a 3-hour audiobook, that's a pretty bad judgment. But anyways, the audiobook was well done. I'm quite happy I finally listened to the story, and I'm going to stick to watching the movie. Another classic I listened to was Turn of the Screw, which also had 2 narrators for the 2 different parts of the book. And I had never read anything of this, heard of it. It was for free. I ran out of credits. And it was Richard Armitage and Emma Thompson narrating. So that was an incentive. And the production was done well. The story is of this governess who goes to this country house, mansion, something, to take care of 2 children. But then she starts seeing ghosts, and I'm not completely sure what I listened to. Honestly, I researched afterwards. I read commentary and criticism and how it changed throughout the years, and I think the book didn't work properly on me. It wasn't badly done. It wasn't a bad story, but I don't know what it wanted to tell me. So it was an entertaining listen, but nothing more. If you're interested in listening to it, I can highly recommend this production because both narrators do a great job, as could be expected from those 2. Another classic I listened to was a re-listen. I listened to The Great Gatsby again, and I enjoy it. I've listened and read this book multiple times, and I'm always surprised that I can always find something new that I didn't pick up on before. Or I forgot, let's be honest, my memory isn't the best. So I always enjoy re-listening to it. I have an audiobook narrated by Gyllenhaal, and that's fun to listen to. Do I need to tell you what The Great Gatsby is about? No, you know, right? That were all the classics I listened to. I also listened to a quick short free book that was called Project Kawayan or something, and I really had to struggle to remember what that was about. And it was a short science fiction about someone waking up somewhere, trying to find out where, and there was a narrator or choose your own adventure story thing where the person waking up could direct the story. It was well done. It was interesting. The story itself was sort of apocalyptic after the end of the time and world, after the end of the world, and society crumbled, and she was frozen in, and there was cloning and real science fiction stuff going on with the characters and what happened, all in a very short, condensed time, in an interesting way of narration. I enjoyed it, but as you can see, it wasn't quite memorable. But it was for free as well. Then, because I'm an idiot, I listened twice to What We Owe the Future, because the first time I didn't quite get it and thought maybe I'll get more the second time around, because I had high expectations of the book, coming across it in 2 separate videos on one day and being interested by what it talked about. But it turns out I either don't get it or I'm just not interested in the whole book. So What We Owe the Future is basically a philosophy story, or a philosophic view of long-termism, meaning that we should do things now for future generations, and why and what that could mean. So there's a lot of looking at how life is now, what's with the past, how things changed, and what influence or effect we can have on the future and future lives, and the threats and dangers that are there, but also what it means for society and how societies could go on as a whole. So if humans continue. And overall, I think it was interesting. There were a lot of interesting parts of it, but I just couldn't care and I couldn't connect. And I was wondering about the part where I was like, maybe I'm not a long-termist. I don't know. Maybe I don't care about the future enough, which is contradicting how I genuinely live my life. So I don't know about that. But anyways, I think if you're interested in it, give it a try. The audiobook was easy to listen to and easy to consume. But maybe that was the problem, that it was too easy to listen to, so I didn't have to interact or engage with the text and the content as much. And August. Just August. Okay, did I miss any audiobooks? No, that were all the audiobooks. So let's move on to ebooks. I read Diary of a Void, which I highly enjoyed. I talk a lot about that in the blog, but this is a book which is a diary of a pregnancy, but the woman isn't pregnant. Basically, she got fed up with doing everything for everyone else in her office. So she said, I have morning sickness, take care of that. And then she just stuck with the lie that she is pregnant and went through it, the whole pregnancy and even maternal leave. And the book shows in snippets the way it affected her life, the way it changed the expectations of people around her. It looked at how she does or how she works, how life experience is different at her job, outside the job, and also with people, and her view of loneliness, her thoughts on that, and all these things. It was a fun read and also an interesting insight into Japanese working culture. Burning Roses was a fun fantasy which contains a lot of retellings of fairy tales. It wasn't exactly what I expected, but we follow these two old women chasing a villain mostly. That's the outset. And we learn a lot about both their past and the fantasy setting they're in, and also who the villain is. And at the end, things turn out a little bit different than we expected. And I enjoyed the idea of who's the villain and who's the good guy and all of that in Hunting Monsters. That's bad description as well, but it is what the book is. It was fun to read. Also fun to read, despite being strangely fun, was To the Warm Horizon. I wanted something light and fluffy, and the cover and the length of the book said, 120 pages, and a flowery cover, To the Warm Horizon, it sounds nice. Well, I would liken it to a female version of Cormac McCarthy's Road, which I haven't read, I've seen the movie. But basically we're following different characters running away from a pandemic or a virus that kills everyone. This was written before the pandemic, but still, I started reading and the prologue said everybody died. And I was like, what the hell am I reading? So the story is really, really well written. I enjoyed the different perspectives of the 3, 4, 5 characters that we have. And I also enjoyed the way we look at an apocalyptic setting from a different viewpoint and trying to survive and moving west all the time, because that's what they did. They started in South Korea and then they went to Russia, and that's where they also met, and the different settings and how it affected different people. As the beginning was very slow and things seemed fine, but since it is an apocalyptic writing with war and everybody hungry and competing for every source or resource there is, we also have violence, murder, and rape. And so there's a warning for that. But what I enjoyed about this, compared to a lot of other apocalyptic writing, I'm thinking if it's mostly by men that I've read, the violence, the murder, the rape, all of that is not stretched out and explained and detailed. It's mentioned, it happens, also with the amount of words that I find appropriate for telling you that that is horrible. And so I enjoyed that about the book, and it was, despite of all the things, rather hopeful. And it ended well. There was life after the event, so that was nice. And that brings us to the last book I finished, well, yesterday in September, but who cares? It was Legends and Lattes. And that's a book I've seen pop up on Twitter every now and again by people who I know who have a similar taste in fantasy than I do. And it sounded like a high fantasy, fluffy romance thing. So I went into it expecting a lot of fantasy, some fun banter, maybe an enemy to lovers. You know me, I don't research books. It had a nice cover and people liked it. So I started reading it, and it was very low on the fantasy. I struggled to get into the writing, and the more I read, the more superfluous I found the fantasy setting. It's not made much use of. Overall, the book might work for other people much better than it did for me. The story broken down is someone changing their career, starting a new business, and making a group of friends around that. So the fantasy setting is that we have fantasy creatures doing that, and that the new business is a coffee shop setting up in a place where they don't know coffee. So that's what the fantasy setting was mostly used for, to be over elaborate in describing a world or building a business of coffee shops, which for us is pretty normal, so we don't need that many explanations. But in this setting, everything can be taken slow. And if you like that, you're going to enjoy the book, because there is struggle around starting the business. There's, of course, someone shaking them down, and disaster happening, and everything ending happily. So all the things you want from a book. But for me, there was not enough fantasy. The fantasy that was there wasn't really used or didn't need to be there. And the romance was basically absent. It was the main characters, they had a connection, which could be said friendship as well, with all the other friends made, and it was a little bit hinted at, but never really got going till the end, basically. The end of end. And so there was no romance either. But I think if you go into it expecting less fantasy, and you are interested in reading about starting a business and all the struggles they are there in starting life new, this could be interesting. And that were all the books I read in August. Like I said, I had a good reading month of a lot of things, which didn't leave a lot of impressions, and I forgot a lot. I'm very sad I forgot a lot about A Room Called Earth, which I really, really enjoyed, but just looking at it before filming, I was like, what was it about again? So that's sad. Enough about me. Let's talk about your August. What have you read? What have you done? Anything exciting happen? Let's share in comments, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.